when I was in India for the first time, 1998, the very first thing I did, I, the next day after being there, I could talk forever on my escapades in India. I could tell you just every moment, every time you turned your head, there was something new, something different, something eyeball-ingly shocking, or wow. But the more often I went there, the more I would learn. And I'm a great people watcher. Always have been, always will be. Got that from sitting on Bondi Beach and Coogee Beach as a young kid. Anyway, um, there were some of the siddhas that were staying there that wanted to go and see this place called Vrindavan, or this guru that they called him. I did not quite used heard the term guru back then, but because we used Maharishi, not a guru, even though the term came into it when we said Jai Guru Dev. But just think, Maharishi's teacher, Jai Guru Dev. Anyway, so we hired a couple of taxis, private taxis, which is the best way to go. And the old ambassador taxis, the old 19 sort of, what's his name, Mahatma Gandhi sort of developed this car industry and took the British Rajas old sort of models from the 1940s and made the great Hindustani ambassador car. It's a gem of a car. I'd buy one tomorrow if I could afford to ship one here. But they still make them in the exact same style model pretty much as what they did back then in 1945. But I'd say that they've improved the engine pollution capacity of it significantly. That then, but the style, it's the car that you see the Indian Prime Minister or the officials still drive around in today. Anyway, they're so wonderful to travel around in. We got these two taxis because there was six of us that went there. Anyway, we drove to this. Um, we stopped on the way and had an Indian lunch, a vegetarian thali, great big thali with only $2, and oh god, it was delicious. Then we went on a bit further down this road. Oh, talk about you driving in, even though he's a taxi driver, you just can't bear to look ahead. The oncoming traffic and the trucks coming at you from all sorts of angles, and you think, where in the hell they had this tiny little narrow bitumen road highway. Well, then they did, and there's great big massive trucks on there coming at you from all angles, and you think, oh my God, how often did I turn my head to look sideways? So I got this habit when I travelled in these countries now to look left sideways, left out the passenger window. But that takes me back to a great story when I was in South India when I had to hang out the door with a little flashlight because the taxi driver didn't have any headlights. He didn't tell me that with his car. But you should check your car out before you go anywhere with anybody. Doesn't matter how good they say it is, it always breaks down. Oh, the times that happened, you thought. It really tests your patience and ingenuity to keep you cool, believe me, because you're not going to get anywhere by losing your temper. You just got to say, this is India, deal with it as you got it. And it's a lot of fun. You always end up having a great day at the end of the day with your drivers. So, I mean, oh, sometimes you just laugh because of all the stupidity of the moment. You just sit there and giggle, 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 cackle. And Indian guys are pretty easy to get them to laugh silly like that. And the more you treat them with personal respect and dignity too, the better they give up themselves. And anyway, so I digressed a little bit there, but I love talking about India. And I want to tell you about driving to this place with these two students going to Vrindavan. And we got to this little city, a very old little city, and got turned around to it. And there was a lot of cows everywhere in the streets, and chickens and pigs, and you name it. It was everywhere. There were horses and little cart horses, and there were bicycles everywhere, and the noise was. But we turned down this one street, which was kind of like the main street into Vrindavan. And I kid you not, what I saw, my jaw just dropped. Uh, ah, uh, I just looked at the street on the sidewalk there, were all these little black old wooden boxes, like an old tipping crate of some sort, that was turned into a little shop front and a little platform in the front, and they all had their little shops along there. And they'd have cakes and sweets and all sorts of things, and chapatis and jellybees, those little deep fried pastries, sugar bee, and and the amount of flies that were there were unbelievable, covered with flies, everything everywhere. Flies, I just never seen flies over food. They were just clawing over food because nothing was covered up from the flies. And the flies were just 1 minute in the cow dung or chicken dung or the whatever dung on the path or the human dung, a lot of it. And I just went, that was my absolute culture shock of India for the first time. And it was a good one because I was able to really process that very quickly. It was either sink or swim here to deal with this. I could not no way other describe other than pure filth. But you have to be able to look behind that vision, and that reality is a, a moment that nothing I could say at this moment could ever prepare you for something like that. And anyway, we got to the riverbank in Vrindavan eventually, and there was this sort of little row of boats, and we had to go over there to the the boat, little boat boys there, and negotiate a boat price because we had to get to the other side of this river called the Yamuna River on the banks of the Vrindavan, on the banks of the Vrindavan River to go over to the other side. We couldn't see anything over the other side. Well, I couldn't see anything on the other side. So what are we going over here for? And said, well, we're just going to follow the leader here. So, okay, we're going to meet somebody. And, okay. And so he said, oh, this guy I was sharing the taxi with, he said, oh, I suppose we should get some fruit. I said, fruit, what for? He said, for an offering, a gift. Because that's what you're supposed to do, is take some fruit to the teacher as an offering, or, some lollies or candies or whatever, money. But the general tradition was fruit of some sort. So there was always lots of bananas around, so we took a bunch of bananas with us. And we got there, and as we were going along, I had my old film camera with me, which wasn't a great. It was a good camera, but I just wasn't good at using it. But anyway, I thought, oh God, look at this little tiny house sticking up on the sticks. This little sort of. It was like a little box, a big box, but not that big, with a little veranda on it, up on these stilts on the side of the riverbank. And around it there was these beautiful green wheat fields, and in the distance you could see the camels crossing over the. They had a little sort of portable punt kind of floating bridge that you could pay a toll and get over if you didn't want to take the boat across. And then as we're going along in this boat, there was a fire on the right hand side of the riverbank, and I just looking over there, and I thought, Oh, they're having a barbecue or burning off some rubbish or something. And then looking there, and then I sort of just started to wonder what's going on. I'm just going with the flow because the others, we're following the others, and we had Julian, who was our sort of tour guide at that time, and he knew India very, very well because he went backwards and forwards all the time. Anyway, um, we got to this encampment with this little house on stilts. And inside there, there was this little old man there, up over this little veranda kind of thing, little porch. He had a beard, long hair. You couldn't see his body because he just sort of sat there, his hands there. And I looked at him, and then they had another fellow on the ground, seemed to be talking to each other. And we just had to stay at the entrance of this little uh, sort of fenced off area in front of him. And behind us, there was these army officers, which were military police, a number of tents there. And I thought, oh, gee, this is a strange little situation. And there was these other people going there and bowing before this man, this old man up and stood. I never met a spiritual anything, spiritual saint, anything like that in my entire life before. And here I was meeting one of the rarest human beings on earth at that point in time. Because I was meeting the great sage of longevity himself, Devrahababaji of Vrindavan, who had been reported, to the best of my knowledge and looking into him, as the great sage of longevity, reported to have lived some 250 years at that time that I was there. Anyway, the energy of just stepping there, being there, this like walking into a warm bath of golden honey, this golden energy just whooshed through me. Not over me, just through right through me. Ah, TVB, you know, I I got hooked, I think, in a big way. I didn't know what Darshan had meant. I didn't never met a spiritual master before in the flesh. This was my very first. Unbeknownst to me, he was the very best. And I clearly got a blessing from him. But I took his photo. Well, I tried to take his photo with my camera. But when I eventually got that film home, there was all that section was completely in the middle of the film, completely blank, nothing, overexposed, nothing of it. And I was disappointed when I was in New Delhi. I said, oh, to the people I was staying with, when I got it developed, because I always like to take my film quick. And they said, you got to ask his permission. You can't just walk up to him and take a photo. Oh, well, no one told me that. But why? And he said, because of his energy and disrespect, he won't let you take his photo. It's a spiritual thing that unless he gives you permission to have it. Oh, okay. So that was Deverahababba's wishes, and so I should have respected, but I didn't know beforehand. Anyway, the wife of the woman who owned this particular guest house in South Extension, Mrs. Sharma, her husband, Captain Sharma, was a air pilot himself and captain of Air India, and he was an educator for Air India or Indian Airlines. I always get those two mixed up, but anyway, they went together. Anyhow, one was international and the other one's internal um, airline. Anyway, Captain Sharma was the educator to teaching Rajiv Gandhi, who was Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India. Her son also became the Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi, um, And he taught Rajiv Gandhi how to fly a Boeing Devon type plane back then. I don't know which one model was out at that time, but whatever one it was. And so they became very, very good friends. But Rajiv Gandhi and Indira Gandhi, both the prime ministers of India, went regularly to Devrahababba on the banks of the Yamuna River to seek out his advice on certain issues that they would have they would have problems. But so it's really amazing how the prime ministers of a great nation of what 1 billion people at that time had to seek out a great sage of longevity how to solve some of their problems or issues. It was just a done thing. So they get to go to the greatest being the highest in the country, they get to consult the highest authority there and get advice on what to do with this political situation or that one. And it was just quite amazing story to hear that about Devraha Baba. For those people who may know him in India that can hear this talk about him, because I know that there's a big encampment now and there's a big following and a Samadhi shrine built on the site where he was when I was there in India. And I know you love the image that I put out there on the internet for you because the image that I feature on my YouTube presentations, and I put it out there on Facebook there for a while, was the photograph that Devrahababba allowed Rajiv Gandhi to take of him. And so it's pretty much, as far as I know, the only actual photo of Devrahababba alive that was ever taken, one of very, very, very few. That's the best one because Rajiv Gandhi was a good photographer and he had a very good camera. And I've got that same photograph in my lounge room sitting over there on the shelf. Oh, you can see him in the background. Just look at the bottom of my microphone there. You can see that very photograph there. There. It's with me. That very same photograph. And that I want to do this talk about meeting Deverahababba and how my relationship grew with him over 3 years actually. Because every time I returned to India, I always made a point of going back to say hi, to call him. But the next year that I returned to India, I really wanted to see Devraha Baba in Vrindavan, same place where he always was. That happened to be the year of the Mahakumbh Mela, which is the greatest religious festival in the world. Well, I didn't know that. I had no idea. I was on the plane going to India. I didn't know he wasn't going to be there and he was going to be somewhere else other than his normal place in the banks of the Yamuna River in Vrindavan. So when I got there, oh no, it was actually on the plane. I was talking to a guy, he had a Hare Krishna get up on. He was always a Hare Krishna devotee. And we started talking a bit, and he said, where are you going to? And I said, oh, I'm going to the Devrahababba. He said, well, why don't you come to the Mahakumbh Mela? I said, what's that? And he said, oh, this is the greatest. He said, I thought you were just naturally going since you're on the plane and everybody else is going there. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, the biggest religious festival in the world. He said, millions go there. He said, everybody be there. He said, all the great saints and the rishis up in the Himalayas come down and all the Sankaracharya, the north, south, east, and west of India. They're the main spiritual traditions of India. The Sankaracharya of the north, the Jyotimath, and Bhadranath, and I met the one in South India there at New Pondicherry. So you got to go to one of those amazing festivals. I mean, just watching it on video. I've got it on video, some of it anyway, what I saw. But wow, I got tested right out with Devrahababba on this one because I went to India specifically to go and see him so easily in Vrindavan from New Delhi. It was only a couple of hours drive really by taxi and or take a train. And anyway, I when I got there, I was told Devrahababba wasn't there, that he was at the Kumbh Mela, so I'd have to go there to see him at the Kumbh Mela. But they didn't tell me that straight up. We actually went to Vrindavan at the Hare Krishna temple there and found out that Devrahababba wasn't there and that we'd actually missed him because he was now at the Kumbh Mela down the river, the 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 Sangam, where the Yamuna River and the Ganges River and the mythical river, the Saraswati, all join at the Sangam there in Allahabad, which was 800 kilometres away. So, oh, God. So we got in our car, drove along all this way, and we got to Vrindavan, and then we went to see Devraha Baba at Haridwar. We drove all the way. Oh, what a trip that was! To drive from New Delhi all the way to Vrindavan, and then from there all the way to the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad, which is 800 kilometres away, going east. And I thought, wow, on that Indian road was, and then we stopped to do a stopover because it's a very long journey. And there was Mrs. Dharma and Edward and their younger daughter and myself in the car and trying to squash into this little Indian modern car. Anyway, we took residents overnight accommodation at the local tourist bungalow. There was a lot of old houses left over from the British Raj that became tourist bungalows for people, or even in the British days, travelling around India. They had an overnight guest house stopover so that they could rest, and it had a bed in it, and a bed in it, and then a mattress on the bed, and you might get a pillow, and there was also a chair, and they were pretty much it. And so we pulled into this little village. It was just really a tiniest little village on the main highway. And wow, it was a romantic night. Everything was 40-watt bulb, incandescent lights everywhere. Not many of them, but there was cow dung fires there burning away so that they could make some chapatis, and also fire up the kettles to make you some chai. And there's nothing like sitting on the side of the road in that setting with the incandescent bulb, and then the mist of the night coming in over you, and there's people around you, and they're supporting your journey. They understand exactly where you are on your spiritual path. Not as much, but they've lost the plot. They're sort of not there. They've lost the essence, that Shakti that they call it, that Shakti, the beautiful energy that you get from spiritual discipline, a good one. Anyway, sitting there having chai and having some sabji with some chapatis. I had puris that night, which is unusual, but she specially requested them to make these puris, to dip in this little sabji, which is a little bit of dal and rice and a bit of potato, maybe a piece of carrot, served to you in a folded banana leaf kind of ensemble. In my time, oh, this is impressive, it's really good, sort of making use of waste products like banana leaves. You could make a little paper plate out of it. And I thought, wow, I thought, why isn't somebody doing stuff like this? We've got these great little ideas, this lovely banana leaf plate, and it all just disintegrates once you throw it away. There's nothing really, just degrades like nature on the side of the road. That's why I like when they also have your cup of chai in India. It's made from a handmade terracotta cup, and they sit on these little wheels on the side of the road, make thousands of these things by the ton. Then they dry them out, and then they fire them not so uh, fired, but enough to sort of make them watertight. And you could get a lovely cup of chai or coffee in one of these beautiful terracotta clay handmade cups for well, at that time was mm, about 3 cents or so by the time we did a conversion around. It's just divine. The art to drinking one of these cups of chai on the side of the road was, don't, for the life of me, do it once but don't do it again. Don't go and watch them make it, do it. Make them watch them make it for you, because that's eye opening. Because if you're in a conversation on the side of the road with one of these little Thai tea makers and chatting away about Indian politics, as you get caught up with a lot in India, travelling as a free tourist woman. And all the men always wanted to talk to you, and they like to talk about politics or mainly cricket. I don't know anything about cricket, but and uh, and then they make this cup of tea for you. It's this disgustingly filthy saucepan that you just can't imagine how bad. And fire up the little cow dung fire there. Sometimes it's that, sometimes it's one of those little old pump kerosene type stoves that they had, spirit stoves. They sit there, boil up the milk and throw in the leaves and the other spices that they like to have. Just throw it in. Boil, bubble squeak, come and squeak. And the taste was just magical. Ah, look, the having that beautiful chai like that with them, because you knew I got to drink this now because I've asked him to make it for him and to demonstrate it to me. I filmed him doing it when I did have that film. I haven't got it, but I got some of another time. But it always fascinated me how each chai walla on the side of the road made their chai to a little special way. And so I got him to make me this chai, and then I had to really sit there and drink it. And I thought, wow. So I did, and it was just bliss. Just bliss. And I thought, oh, and he could see that in my face, you know. And he was so happy. I mean, he just got so, because you can't fake something you love. It just comes out. It's either disgusting and then, or wow, you know, just beautiful, or just nothing, you know. But I just fell in love with these little cups of chai, Indian chai, and or coffee, whatever. But usually on the side of the road was always chai tea. So this particular chaiwala in Vrindavan outside the Hare Krishna temple, he was an interesting man because they didn't serve chai in the temple. You see, the Hare Krishnas don't have any chai at all, tea or coffee. So you really had to go outside of the temple where I was staying in Vrindavan to see Devrahababba the first time. You had to actually go outside into the street to get a cup of chai. So all these little experiences start to add up because they're all teaching you how to integrate yourself from our sterile clean, surgically clean, with that's where I worked in an operating room, going into this environment in India to meet Devrahababba. So anyway, the next time I come back to see Devrahababba, he's not there in his usual temple. He's off at the Mahakumbh Mela, so we had to go to there to see him. So when we got to the Mahakumbh Mela, we're running around with all these millions of people, these Indian pilgrims that have come there for this auspicious times. The Mahakumbh Mela is when the gods, the Hindu gods, Vedic gods, old ancient gods from the heavens, the Vedic gods, come down out of the heavens and they stir the milk, this sacred milk, and make the butter to make the butter. But they form in stirring the milk, they make the curd, but also they have the amrit that comes out of this divine milk from the moonbeams. All these interpretations of this. But they call it the amrit, the soma, the liquid soma that the gods drip on those devotees that come to this place and bathe in the sangam, or the where the three rivers meet on the banks of the river in Allahabad in India, the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the mythical Saraswati that runs in the middle. You often see the Bindu here, the third eye, representing that in the human universal projection of what that looks like in the cosmos, how it looks, the Saraswati rivers of knowledge, and how it represents and replicated in the human body. Complicated stuff, but you're going to have a look into it. So we got to the Kumbh Mela, and there was a really interesting experience that happened. But I want to try and contain it just to Devraha Baba at this point in time. We were at the Kumbh Mela and we had this bathing experience at night, which I'll never forget. And it was the most stupid thing I ever did, but I followed everybody else. And it's actually recorded, one of my videos, actually sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning, getting ready, waking up to go down to the banks of the Yamuna River at the Sangam to have a bathe in at the Sangam in a boat in the dark with millions of people around you. No, standing water like that. No. That's what happened. So anyway, let's go back to Devraha Baba. So we couldn't go to see Devraha Baba, so we went on to, because we couldn't get out there. In fact, I think they lost their interest, but I just really was upset. But they said, oh, we'll go down to Varanasi, Banaras, down the track a bit, down the Ganges, have a look there, and we call him and come back when we come back, because he will still be here and the festival will still be on. I said, okay, then that's good. So I paid that. So we went on to Varanasi and had a look at the Ganges River for the first time and paddled around there in the boat, got to know how to barter for the boats, the silk. That was a beautiful city, but the Ganges and Benares and the city of Kashi was just, well, it's the Rome. It's the eternal city of Rome, or the same equivalent to be the Kyoto in Japan, or in Egypt. Who knows? Older than actually Egypt. The Varanasi is, it's hugely old. I don't think anyone's actually given an accurate date. Some say 5, some say 10,000 years old, but it's known as Lord Shiva's city, the city of Kashi. So anyway, Devrahababba was nowhere to be found on our return home back to New Delhi, because that's where we just headed all the way back home to New Delhi, bypassing the Kumbh Mela all the time because Mrs. Dharma had developed a terrible toothache. So fine, okay, we didn't get to see Devrahababba, nearly drowned in the Sangam in the middle of the night, going down to see this, trying to catch this Amrit Kalash from the stoma being sprinkled over the people, pilgrims in the water. And I thought, oh, I nearly. So we got back to New Delhi, and I met up with this other guy who was staying at the same guest house, and he was named Peter, and he was a Sanskrit scholar, teacher, professor somewhere over in Germany, Hamburg, I think it was, and he was a TM teacher too, a governor. And he come to India for I don't know what, but he was going to learn about Sanskrit and the Vedas and the Shastras and all that sort of stuff because he liked to delve into that, being a Sanskrit teacher. That was his forte. So, but Peter was what I call typical governor. They had to dress in suits, their best suit all the time, winter to summer, didn't matter. You had to look very professional because Maharishi was very strict on that. To be a TM teacher or even to be a TM sitter, you had to look your best all the time, groomed yourself well because you're showing your body self respect. And that was the honoring yourself, keeping yourself clean and all that, and well presented. But anyway, you can only do what you can do in India with what you got. For a lot of people, that's why it's always good to respect everybody. Doesn't matter what. Well, that's how I looked at it anyway. But a lot of people, yeah, didn't really kind of agree with me on that. It kind of wasn't a social norm. You kind of picked up this class divide that I had not quite experienced until I went to India, this untouchable class and the Sudra and the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, Vaishnavas, all that sort of different caste distinctions, the Brahmin. So you thought, wow, they all got their little codes in there too, what to do and their rituals. I found it fascinating, so I started to study it in detail. So I had to know this. I started to study Sanskrit as well. I went to the, um, I can't think of his name, the Swami Vivekananda Vedic um, school in Sydney that was there back in the 1980s. Um, and I studied Sanskrit there every Saturday morning religiously for 6 hours um, with a really brilliant teacher and about 5 or 6 other Indian women. So it was a grueling class, and we had to learn the alphabet, read and write the alphabet perfectly to pronounce the vowels and consonants as they were because they're different the way they um, pronounce their vowels and the whole alphabet. And so I had to be able to read and write that or pronounce at least the sounds and to be able to string them together. So I studied that, and at the same time, I had this idea. Someone talked about this textbook that all the students were reading, and so I managed to get a copy of this old book. It's in 2 volumes about that thick, and it was both written in Sanskrit as well as English. But when I say English, I mean Romanji, but it was still written in Indian, using Indian words or Sanskrit words in Romanji. So that's still difficult to get your head around. But it's called the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's one of the Puranas of the Vedic Vedic knowledge, and it was narrated or cognized by Vyasa, who wrote this particular volume called, well, he transcribed all the Vedas, he wrote all the Vedas, but this one called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Vyasa had incorporated into this that if you read this from cover to cover in Sanskrit within a week, you get instantaneous enlightenment for the fact that you achieved it. Well, I would had in terrible time trying to get around a lot of these words, and I highlighted a lot of them as I went along too, because it was so fascinating. Because it also the Srimad Bhagavatam contained the Mahabharata and in that, of course, the Bhagavad Gita and the story about Lord Krishna and how he grew up. And it is a very enlightening book, to say the least, because of the beginning and the end. It ends that way. Amen. I am the Amanda Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. Exactly the same way as our Bible ends. Funny enough. So I found that really a fascinating book to read and just learn. It helped me understand karma a lot better, good karma and the laws of karma, going backwards and achieving things and the energies of karma. Like there's good karma, there's bad karma. So, and how one attracts the other and the different lives that we go through, the different incarnations. And if we naughty, we can become a grub. Or we can really do the right thing and we work very hard spiritually, we can become enlightened. I don't want to become a worm, so I thought I'd go the other way. That's what that's what I got out of that, reading that book. And I love the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the dialogue that goes on between them. Maharishi um, wrote a book or discourse on the Bhagavad Gita, and it's beautiful to read his interpretation of it. A lot of spiritual masters have their interpretation, but I particularly liked his. So anyway, when I digressed a lot. I'm so sorry, but when I got back, I talked to this Sanskrit guy, Peter, and I said, "Want to go on a trip? Want to go on a journey? You know? Would you like to come with me to meet Devraha Baba in Vrindavan at the Kumbh Mela?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I'd heard about that." And he said, "Oh, it sounds very interesting." But prior to that, I took him to that Shastriji in New Delhi, and he had a lovely time meeting Shastriji because he got to go through a number of these different shastras that he quoted backwards and forwards. They were going line by line. I think he didn't quite know. Poor Shastra, he was having trouble keeping up with them, but he knew them. He knew them, and this impressed Peter. But considering Shastri's age, and then Shastri sort of sit there, and you kind of got to watch his this old stage in New Delhi that saved my life. And you got to watch his head, because he's just constantly looking around at everything. You don't know what he's really looking at until he actually addresses you. And then he's addressing you with something, then off he goes again, looks around. He's just sits there taking it in. This is what happens with these saints when you meet them. Their energy is just, and watching their everything. But they really know. And I owe my life to Shastri. Actually, I also owe my life to Devraha Baba for his blessing that he gave me that day. I'm sure, having his darshan that day, he blessed me to protect me with all the things that I went to after I went to. I probably would have died because I had that intuitive energy awakened in me already with, the TM and the TM cities. I had a high intuitive awareness, and I always followed my intuition as a child. That was a normal thing. But when I was there in India, it just magnified greatly, I feel, because these two, because my life was actually in danger a number of times. Well, just getting in the car in India is like, or anything you eat, anything, just walking down the street, you can get an infection from all the excreta blowing around in the air. It's just everywhere, everywhere. I can't tell you enough. Just, I had, every time I went to India, I always got a sore throat, a infected eye or two. I couldn't open them. Lose my voice. I just go horse for about 2 or 3 weeks, the, the or have an ear infection, or the whole three at one time. Always got that. But the eye infection was the worst one. You know, you had to wear glasses, and the pollution, you couldn't walk in the street because you'd be in the car, and the cars wasn't air conditioned back then, but you'd have to put your shawl over your face to block that, to breathe, get that pollution out of the air. Dare not put your window down as you're driving through the streets or one of the tuk-tuks. That's why they always drive around with that. And then there's this fine dust everywhere, and you don't know whether it's from a well, when I was there, it was a lot of the time from the cremation grounds, the dust blowing up in the dust balls on the riverbanks and things that you just went everywhere. It's just such a fine dust. So you've got to be prepared for anything at any time. And so having the blessings of a guru when you first go there, I sort of seriously get that extra help, you might say, because I really wouldn't like to have relied on the health system from what I saw, and I was introduced to it my first trip to India, which was really quite unique, actually.